Yeah, you read that title correctly. I was held at gunpoint. This is not clickbait. This is an entirely true story. Stay tuned, and we're going to go into some details as well as the aftermath of this very traumatic experience. I struggled for a while to even begin to put into words that I understood as to what actually happened to me last week. Uh, it was so surreal. It was such an out of body experience that yeah, it's definitely something that I'm still processing. But I also knew the power that comes from sharing your story. That I knew I couldn't just sit on this, and I wanted to do it while it was still fresh in my mind. And so this actually happened last week, in broad daylight. Some of my close circles have asked, like, oh, where were you going at night? Or even gotten asked the question, what were you wearing? That kind of thing. But as we know, if someone has an intent to try to harm you, it doesn't matter what time it is and what you're wearing, and that should never be an excuse for that. Just to clarify, it was 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and I had a beautiful day scheduled. I had just had an awesome time of just prayer and devotional with the Lord, and had actually made an effort to really kind of be sensitive to just kind of what the Lord was speaking to me during that time. And I also had kind of identified certain areas of warfare and attack. And, not to sound super spiritual or spooky, but there are times where you have to kind of call it for what it is, right? If you're in a constant season where your finances are just not seeming to grow, or your health is always something, or your relationships always break apart. After you've identified the quote unquote plausible reasons, you do have to step back and say, okay, Lord, what am I not seeing? What else is happening here beneath the surface that maybe I need you to bring an awareness to me to understand? And so that was kind of the space I'd been in the past couple of days before this happened. And so I was definitely sensitive to what the Lord was saying, but at the same time, yeah, of course, I was not expecting a physical manifestation of what I had been definitely dealing with. And so just fast forward, I was on my way to meet a friend. We were going to go to this amazing event. And I, was on my phone, and I was texting her actually to tell her, hey, I'm walking to the metro. I'm on my way. And I passed a guy who was coming towards me, just a regular guy. And I just, the little southern part of me kicked in, even though I am a native New Yorker, not that you can tell anymore by my accent. But yeah, just did the obligatory head nod, good afternoon, and kept walking. And he asked me what time it was, and I already knew what time it was because I just seen my phone. So I never stopped, and the New Yorker instincts in me kicked in. And so I just kind of, said the time over my shoulder and kept walking and never stopped. And the next thing I know, I heard footsteps running up behind me, and I turned very suddenly, and he was pointing a gun at me. And yeah, it was in my face, and he was shaking it, and he told me to give him my wallet. What do you do? And so for me, my mind was having a whole different conversation than what my spirit was. So my mind was thinking a lot of things, very impractical things, like, no, I don't want to lay down on the dirty ground. Like, that's germs, things like that. And I do remember one distinct thought was, I don't die here. Like, I'm not going to die here. This is not how it ends. I do remember that was a very vibrant thought. And then, a little bit of that black woman came in. I was like, what we ain't finna do is kill me here. But that was all in my head. All of this is happening in my head. But out of my mouth, all I kept saying was, in Jesus' name, in Jesus' name, in Jesus' name, in Jesus' name, just over and over and over as I slowly backed away from him. And as I'm saying this to you, it sounds insane. It's like you were facing a gun and you were saying in Jesus' name, like, girl, you better run, you better drop your purse, you better throw that wallet, you better. But when I tell y'all, I didn't control my actions. Like, even if I wanted to run, my legs were like jelly. Like, I couldn't go anywhere anyway. And probably by like the fourth and fifth time, he looked, and he was just kind of like, are you serious? Like, you're really doing this? And I kept saying it, and I kept saying it. And then he finally just kind of, with a look of frustration, like, man, and like put the gun away in his pocket and ran the other direction. Of course, by this point, I'm like shaking. I call, 911, and immediately 3 cop cars came. The detective came. It was just like a little scene. And I'm standing there like, but I was just trying to meet my friend. Like I was just trying to have life as normal. They took my statement. The thing that they kept remarking on was, you don't look like someone who just got held up at gunpoint. Like you don't look like what you've been through, essentially. And that is the story of my life, right? And maybe you can relate to that. But there was that moment too where I had that thought where I was like, well, maybe the gun wasn't real. But while I was with the detective, another call came in, and someone matching his description actually just shot someone and robbed them. That just, of course, brought it all back. So definitely a traumatic experience, definitely something that I realized that could have went so many other directions, but so grateful that it didn't. And I wanted to share that, like I said, not for clickbait or just to be like, ooh, look what happened to me. But if anything that situation taught me was, number one, the power of Christ's name. But number two, to really be very careful about the narrative of how we look at certain things that happen to us. Because my instinct, of course, was to be like, oh God, I just made it out with my life. But instead of that, to look and say, wait a minute, God, you kept me. You kept me, and you did it in such a way that no one could get the glory but you. Like, this is a victory. This isn't a loss. I'm not a victim. I'm actually a victor. And sometimes I want to challenge you to look at some of the circumstances in your life, things that you've made it through, like the skin of your teeth, where you're kind of like, how am I still standing? Change the narrative, change the lens at which you look at what you're going through, and realize that, wait a minute, you're a victor. You're not a victim. What was meant to kill you, what was meant to stop you, what was meant to pump the brakes on everything, your purpose, your destiny, your gifts and your talents, didn't. You are still here. That's a victory. That's a win in my book. And so I really want to encourage you to look back and kind of look again at some of these things that we carry around, like this burden of like, I'm in this season and I just can't shake it and I'm just so heavy. And no, when you overcome something like that, step back and say, okay, what now? This is a second, a third, a fifth chance at life, and I don't want to waste it. So what dream am I sitting on? What business venture have I been scared to do? What have I not done? What have I not been in position to do because I've just been waiting around and waiting for someone else to do it, or just scared? And for me, I have to tell y'all, like, that, it accelerated me into the space that I'm in now. Now I'm like, man, every day is a gift. Every day is for me. Every day I can't afford to waste my time. I can't afford to waste my gifting and my message. What you have, no one else can do it. No one else can say it the way you can say it, or sing it, or draw it, or photograph it the way that you can. You are unique. And Satan would like nothing more for you to forget that and wallow in this space of self-pity and insecurity and depression and just like what's the point? Instead of saying, what's the point? Push yourself to really say, there is something else. The story is not over. It continues. And you are the main character. So you might as well show up. If you're going to wake up today, you might as well give it your all. You might as well do it. What are you waiting for? What are you scared of? So for me, sharing this is huge for me because I didn't plan to. And it is definitely transparent to say all that happened, but I know that I'm an overcomer as a result of that. And this is not to knock, mental health professionals, counselors, because I will definitely get some counseling because that was a traumatic experience, right? So I'm all about #mental health and making sure things are in order. But can we pause right now and just say, won't he do it? That I'm still here. And if anything, it reinvigorated me to share and to do what I have for the world even more. Now I'm like, oh, you can't stop me now. Watch out. And so I want you to have that same energy, and I want you to have that same passion, and just wake that up, stir that up, and say, not today, Satan, and not tomorrow either. So I pray that this blessed you. I pray that this stirred you up. I pray that you look at what's in your hand, what you already have, what you've been sitting on, and I pray that you use it for the glory of God, because somebody's waiting on it, somebody needs it. And if you're still here, you can still do it. And we will talk soon. Like, follow, subscribe, comment, turn on those notifications. Make sure that you remember, you do not have to do life alone. All right, till next time. Bye, y'all.